Sup peeps. Sorry about the glare on this book. I've tried filming it a bunch of ways, but I can't get rid of the glare. There's too much solid black and lots of glossy pages and things like that, dark colours. So you'll just have to, if you enjoy the art, you'll just have to buy the fucking thing. So Batman White Knight number 3. I love the cover for a start. I was really looking forward to this cover. However, I thought we were only getting this, but we got these too, and that really felt like a bonus to me because I love the design for both these characters. I also really like the characters themselves in this, as well as, of course, Bruce Wayne himself. And this is a cool nod to the Shakespeare scene, obviously, but it makes more sense than it usually does because the quote contains the line, "a fellow of infinite jest," which is obviously a nod to the Joker. And yeah, I made a joke about that online, and SMurph liked it, so he must have had that in mind when he said exactly. So he didn't just do this because it looked cool. He did it for a reason, and I like that. I appreciate that sort of thing. We see somebody suiting up, cool suit up scene, and I'm kind of jealous because Batman hasn't had a cool suit up scene yet, and that's kind of mandatory. You've got to do that if you're going to make a classic Batman book or film. You need to do the suit up scene. Come on. And this is a nice little reverse. It's a joke. It's a nice little reverse thing about she is talking of how Harley Quinn is bad for the Joker. She's a bad influence. She's making him take these pills. She's keeping him to herself, and she's not letting him be himself. And she's not talking about her getting him into trouble. She's actually talking about him not being the Joker anymore. But nobody's listening to her because she's a thought. So she brought it on herself. This panel I love. I love the way firstly, I love this fucking penguin. Look at him. Is that not glorious? No, it's not, because it won't. There we go. That just kills me. I love it. And then Killer Croc simultaneously looks. I really love the way the musculature is done. You know, see the grotesquely overdone abs like modern bodybuilders, and it makes him look very imposing rather than like heroic. And you can practically hear him roaring on this page. But he also kind of looks like he's going la, which I can't unsee, and now neither will you. But if you look, they all kind of form, aside from these two at the side, and even the penguin to an extent, they're all not in contact, but they're stacked very heavily, and they kind of snake towards you, and it gives you this instinct to kind of pull back. I love the Bane design, and I love the Scarecrow design. They're my two favourites. The sort of Plague Doctor, like classic Sandman look to Scarecrow with the incorporated Arkham syringes, and Bane looking just kind of unique. He doesn't really, you could say the fur colour maybe a throwback to Nolan's Bane plus the obvious wrestler. I don't know. I think it's just an original take. And they're causing a massive riot on behalf of the Joker. Now, this is I'm not just doing a straight up play by play because I need to be quick. I need to be more concise because that's why I'm doing this video again. So let's get to the point. This is I think a little bit of an ode to the first issue of this, where Batman runs somebody over, and he bumps somebody, right? And this is him deliberately running Bane over. And I think that's meant to be deliberate because nobody trusts Batman's expertise. Like, he knew what he was doing. If he thought he was going to hit that civilian, he would have moved, but he knew it was going to be a light sort of bump, and it gave everybody a fright. But Batman knows what he's doing because he's Batman. However, that's a way to get turned on its head too. There's so much to analyse with this. I've been heaping praise on this book. I'm going to talk about a couple of things I don't like as well, but there's so much to analyse. It's really difficult not to take up the 20 minutes. Anyway, he harpoons them. There he is, looking badass. And drags them, the two heavies, Killer Croc and Bane, away in the Batmobile, which I just love. I love the design of the Batmobile, and I love that tactic. He calculates that if he drags them away to an unpopulated area, such as a construction site, it'll be better and less lives lost. Also, he has the bright idea of if he takes them to a construction site owned by Jack Napier, or at least, directed by him, then they won't trash the place. So that means there will be no lives lost and no property damage. Everybody wins, right? However, Jack Napier is an unknown quantity to Batman. He fought the Red Hood, and then he fought the Joker, but he's never fought Jack Napier before. So the two look at each other and trash the place. And if you remember, this is based on Batman the Animated Series, but also reminds me a lot of Lego Batman, just the way it's done, like the games. I don't know, maybe the film too, but if you played as Killer Croc or Bane, you could imagine the kind of property damage that they're doing right now, whereas, if you imagine the more sort of flesh and blood, then how do you punch a girder kind of thing? But, no, I can imagine the sort of damage they're doing. So Batman, realising he's made a mistake, rushes in to stop them and gets himself grievously injured, and drives away in the Batmobile. He has to kind of sat-nav away, and that's a nice little jump away. I love the way the car's done in this. So that then leads to, this is something I need to point out. The dialogue in this is really not very good. It all reads, aside from Batman and Barbara, it all reads like synopsis, like very expository, very standard. It's just telling you what's happening, but it's not. It doesn't feel like two people talking to each other. It feels like you're reading the blurb or the back of the book, like a synopsis, like I said, or somebody describing the book to you. So while the events happening are interesting, while the characters are interesting and their motivations are interesting, their dialogue is never interesting, or very rarely. Also, he draws everybody's face, or not everybody's face, but he draws Batman, Nightwing, and Joker's face far too similarly to one another, and aside from the detail on them, Commissioner Gordon as well, his actual facial structure is exactly the same, which, I mean, fair enough, lots of artists do that, but I criticise them for it too. So that's beginning to bug me a little bit. Basically, the more caricaturized the character is, the better they look. So Bane and Bullock, for instance, look very distinct, whereas I know Bane's got his face covered, but you know what I mean. And Batman, aside from the jawline, is indistinguishable from Nightwing and Joker, which gets on my nerves a little bit. He's better at drawing women because neither of the Harleys or Batgirl, or I think Renee Montoya, I think it's her, look alike. So this is a cool concept. It's the secret that's going to bring down Gotham. Now, this is a really nice scene I wanted to point out, because like I say, I'm not just reading it through, I'm wanting to analyse things. So, to my mind, the Batmobile has always been a representation or an expression of the Batman driving it. If you look at Burton's Batman, his Batmobile is very decorative, very gothic, very over the top, very beautiful to look at, and really exciting. And his Batman is the same, decorative, not entirely practical. You can see the gothic elements, but not very functional looking, but beautiful nonetheless to look at. And the Batmobile reflects that. Whereas Nolan, his Batmobile and Batman are both heavily armoured, minimal bat iconography, lots of weapons hidden everywhere, extremely durable, extremely fast, and extremely aggressive. And this Batmobile is, minimal bat iconography, but prominent. So you've got the little ears on there. So it's prominent, but minimal. The car is barely covered. It looks unfinished, but not in the lazy slapdash sense, but in the sense that no panelling was necessary on the front, so no panelling was put on. It's a functional vehicle. It's constantly being repaired and upgraded. It's got vents and exhausts all over it to just let off the energy that's pent up inside. It can move extremely fast. It can move on a variety of surfaces, and so is the Batman that it belongs to. He's extremely tough. He's got no frills. Even his outfits had a bit of a dressing down, but there's prominent iconography there, but it's not particularly abundant, just prominent. And however, the Batmobile is doing something else, which is it looks like it's wounded and it is empty here. And that kind of is the Batman in this as well. He's Somebody pointed out that this is meant to be an older Batman. I do not know if that is the case. I don't think it matters. But it's a worn down Batman, and he is a little bit empty, and he is badly wounded, both physically and mentally. And this lovely page illustrates that perfectly. And this is where, when I said the dialogue kind of sucks in these comics, the visual storytelling always makes up for it, which is why I hadn't talked about it yet, because I'd not even noticed I wasn't talking about the dialogue, purely because the visual storytelling is so good that the dialogue actually seems less important. And it's Smurf's first outing as a sole writer as well, so I guess I was maybe unconsciously giving him a chance where I wouldn't ordinarily. But I feel that the storytelling is top notch. It's just not storytelling through actual words, and therefore that's why it didn't get a mark down from me, because it's a net positive. It's just different. And so this I liked as well. The relationship between Bruce and Alfred is difficult to do. Sometimes you can make Bruce too much of a dick to Alfred, and sometimes you can make them a little bit too close, I guess. Not that I see either of those things done often, but I could see those being challenges. And this is good. We haven't seen any interaction with them because Alfred's in a coma, but in this moment, Bruce shows what we can only... Like, he's barely spoken to anybody in this book. He's barely spoken, and that's going to be another one of my criticisms coming up. But, you know, that small squeeze of the hand, and his obvious affection for Alfred throughout, really humanise Bruce in a way that the rest of the comic doesn't, and I think that's on purpose. Alfred humanises him in a way that the sidekicks and Gordon and even the Joker cannot. Now let's move on. This is again more synopsis talk, and I like this detail. So I like this detail of he's wearing Batman's colour, the black, grey, yellow. I really like that. It's almost a taunt, it's almost a joke in itself, and that'll be on purpose. Nothing. When you put this much work into things, it's never usually an accident. So this is a study in contrasts where the excellent art and the excellent inking distract you from the bad storytelling. It's also a speech as well, so you don't expect it to sound like natural dialogue, because it's a monologue and he's talking like a politician, so it sounds correct that he would talk like a dick. Now, here is in 2 panels why I am having trouble with Matt Hollingsworth. This is a washed out, muddy, red mess, but that's a daylight scene, or at least a lit scene. Now here in the dark is where he comes into his own. Look at that. It doesn't look muddy, it looks vibrant, but it's grey. It's grey and black with a little bit of white peppered throughout, and yet it looks alive and vibrant. And the way he's not done those background colours as a solid black. You can see he's kind of either watercoloured or acrylic painted them, and as a result, the cave, I can practically hear the water running and the bats flying around, because instead of that solid grey background with some line work, he has taken the trouble to do that. Also love the little details of the computer and you know, Barbara's body language telling she's shocked, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so the speech is very dull, but it gets you from point A to point B. It's saying, look, Batman causes damage. Where does the money for repairing that come from? Well, actually, I've discovered that there is a spoiler. There's a secret subsection of the disaster and natural disaster fund that is dedicated to Batman-related incidents, and pays for that. Now, I would be interested to know how much of that money comes from Wayne himself. I don't think he would let the taxpayers pick that up. Shit, I didn't want to spoil that bit. Hope you didn't see it. Sorry. Like, that was... The whole thing's spoilers, but I hope that... I didn't want to put in that major spoiler. I'm going to do a separate thing on that, I think. This, again, right, this is world building here and character development. So we're learning about how Nightwing feels about Bruce and Barbara feels about Bruce. However, the dialogue used to tell that is extremely bland and boring, but what they're telling you about is very interesting. They've swapped Dick and Jason, so Dick is the second Robin, and the dynamic, therefore, has made him a very different Nightwing, because Bruce was borderline cruel to him because he couldn't function. He'd lost a Robin, and he wanted to do the nice thing of take in Dick, and then when he did it, he didn't know how to deal with his grief over the missing Robin. They've implied that he could be dead, but it's or inferred that he could be dead, but he's just missing. And Joker hasn't killed anybody because, as I said before, Batman's a little bit too effective at stopping the Joker, and it stopped people realizing how dangerous the Joker is. Again, the dark scene is far better inked than the daylight scene. It looks alive, very atmospheric. And then Barbara points out that this is not just a fight between Batman and the Joker. This is a fight between us and Batman, and that is illustrated here. I really love this panel. It's the same layout as the cover, obviously, but just a little less detail, etc. This is, again, they've switched up the world a little bit so that this is Duke Thomas. This is the Signal from the Scott Snyder run, which it's all right. It's don't make too much of it. It's a nice little interesting thing on its own. Just leave it there, kind of thing. And we get some expository dialogue, and again the dialogue isn't very good, but they show you what's going on as it's being talked about, so that makes up for it. A nice sort of walk through the city. And then Batman here at this point has refocused. I thought he was going to go like even more aggressive and reckless than he had been, but at this point he's actually refocused and is more Batmanish than we had expected. So my final recommendation, I want to speak about this as well. Actually, he messes this up. He tries to be too clever with the panel layouts and ruins it. So this is meant to be a jump scare here, and I would put money on what you've just done is gone 1, 2, 3, 4. But what you're actually supposed to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, and you get a jump scare here, and that annoyed me because that experience will now be lost to me because you're supposed to read it unnaturally like that. Whereas if they laid it out, trying to be too clever for its own good. So my final recommendation is definitely buy this. Definitely buy it. It's fantastic whether you're a consumer or whether you're a creator yourself. You will find lots to enjoy here, because even if you're a writer, there are lots of lessons in here as to what not to do and how to tell a story non-verbally, which I think is valuable to anybody. So yeah, definitely buy this. I'm going to do another video on this where I talk about another aspect of it, but I might do that. Might do it at the end of the series, but I think I'm going to do it. It's about one particular aspect, so I might do a mini video on that. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I've shaved down 5 minutes off the initial time, so that's good, and I will catch you all later. Let me know what you think below, like, and please share, and I hope this was helpful to you in your buying choices. There wasn't a huge amount to analyse here, so if you've already bought it and you're looking at this review, I hope it's been entertaining and I've maybe pointed out a couple of things, but I might not have, so I understand if this hasn't been up to scratch. But anyway, enjoy, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.